War Eagle. Well,
you good? Okay.
Thrilled to be with you here today, and I'd like to thank you all for attending what I believe is an exciting day in the life of Auburn University and Auburn athletics. I'd like to express my appreciation to members of our Auburn University administration, our coaches and our athletics staff for being here, and members of the media, of course. I'd also like to make a special recognition. I'd like to thank Rich McGlynn for his work during this transitional period that we've had here at the university. And I'd also like to give thanks to Turnkey ZRG, the search firm that assisted in this process, for their professionalism through this entire search process for our next athletics director. In looking for someone to serve the role of athletics director here at Auburn University, given the importance of our program, we were looking for somebody with previous experience as an athletics director, especially someone that had experience in a Power 5 athletics director position, someone with knowledge and understanding of the Southeastern Conference and, frankly, our geographic footprint and what it brings to bear in terms of our future success. We were also looking for a person with success as an athletics director in all areas, athletically, academically, in terms of facilities enhancements, as well as compliance. And lastly, we were looking for a candidate that came highly recommended both as a professional and as a person. I am thrilled to tell you today that we are presenting to you John Cohen as the next athletics director at Auburn University. Tracy and I are in particular thrilled to have both Nell and John with us here today. Thank you very much for being at the press conference, Nell. John has over 20 years of experience as a coach, administrator, and athletics director in the Southeastern Conference with stops at 4 schools in our league: Missouri, Florida, Kentucky, and Mississippi State. John's led programs to conference championships as well as a coach and as an administrator, and he led Mississippi State to its first ever national championship in any sport. John's incredibly intelligent. I'd like to stress that again. In my conversations with John, it's abundantly clear that John is extremely intelligent. He's a strong leader. He's highly motivated and very competitive. And on top of that, he's got a wonderful vision. John's well respected by his peers within the SEC, both nationally, within the SEC and nationally, as demonstrated by him serving as the chair of the NCAA Division I Baseball Committee. These are just a few examples of the many reasons that it became abundantly clear that John Cohen was the right choice as we went through this process. So at this time, I'd like to introduce the 16th Athletics Director at Auburn University, John Cohen.
War Eagle. War Eagle. Just some quick thank yous. Thank you to Dr. Chris Roberts, the manner in which he conducted the search. I don't think Auburn could possibly be in better hands. And I want to thank the entire Auburn family for being so welcoming and for providing this opportunity. I want to thank my family. I have a 91-year-old mother, and she informed me once you get to 80, you're allowed to say the age out loud. A 91-year-old mother who's getting used to donning the blue and orange up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I want to thank my 3 sisters who helped raise me. My wife, Nell, who's here today. We just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary in August. And my kids, who are probably watching right now, Jordan and Avery, although they probably both ought to be doing their job. They ought to be working right now, so I hope they're working. A special thank you to Dr. Mark Keenum, who will always hold a special place in my heart, who's done a tremendous job at Mississippi State. And I want to thank the Mississippi State family as well. Mississippi State will always be part of my DNA, and I have a deep appreciation for them. So right into this, what is my purpose? What are my goals? What's my mission? First of all, it's to serve the Auburn family and Dr. Chris Roberts. That's issue number 1. I want to ensure that every student athlete has a positive and productive experience at Auburn University. that goes way beyond just the experience they're having now. The experience they're having now will propel them to a later experience. And one of my favorite things about being being a coach and an administrator is that 29 or 30-year-old former student athlete coming back and saying, I get it. Thank you for that experience that I had then, because I might not have fully appreciated or understood the experience when I was going through it. My goal is to put Auburn in position, as it has always done, put Auburn in position to win SEC championships and national championships. My goal is to relentlessly promote this wonderful university, Auburn University. My goal is to follow the full scope of compliance, which is not just simply NCAA rules, not just simply SEC policy or regulation. It goes way beyond that. That's one of the very appealing things about Auburn University, because compliance goes way beyond that. Common courtesy is part of compliance. Public service is part of compliance. And the Auburn Creed is very, very much part of compliance. What's my why? Why did I make this decision after having this wonderful opportunity being presented to me? Why? Well, a big part of the why is the Auburn tradition, of which there is much. No question about that. Why? Because my belief in Dr. Roberts and this administration, his leadership and his passion for Auburn is incredible. Why? My belief in the current coaches here at Auburn University. I think this is one of the great collection of coaches that exist in the entire country, as well as athletic department personnel. And I want to highlight our new deputy athletic director, Rich McGlynn, who has been a star, not only for me, but for this department, for this university, and quite frankly, the Southeastern Conference. As somebody on the outside who has looked in to Auburn, you cannot just even talk about the success of this place without mentioning Rich McGlynn. The recruiting footprint of Auburn University, of which you're all aware, draw the 350-mile circle around Auburn, Alabama, and you're talking about some of the best student athletes in the entire country. How about the Auburn brand? I know that I will go through airports with my little thing here, my little lapel pin. I know that this brand, this symbol, will be noticed in every airport in the country that I go through and beyond. It's a powerful brand, and I recognize that. Why? How about the Auburn Creed? I love the Auburn Creed. I love the examples of earning it through hard work. I love the honesty and truthfulness, the education which creates knowledge, helpfulness, sympathy, powerful words, the Auburn Creed. How about this why? And this is another why. This is a big why for me. I've heard and seen the common refrain, Auburn being Auburn. And I want to tell you, in my opinion, as somebody who's been on the outside, who's now coming in, Auburn being Auburn is a special thing. Let me talk a little bit more about that. This is one of the nation's preeminent comprehensive land-grant institutions, a leader in research, technology, and education, and in my opinion, that is Auburn being Auburn. 3 Heisman Trophy winners is Auburn being Auburn. Athletes who forever changed the nature of their own sport, not just here, not just in the SEC, but nationally. Like Bo, like the Big Hurt, like Sir Charles, like Rowdy, like Ruthie, like Suni. I can name a bunch more. That is Auburn being Auburn. How about Hall of Fame coaches? Shug Jordan, Pat Dye, Joel Eves, Sonny Smith, Howell Baird, who I got to see the other day, Joe Champy, David Marsh, Ralph Spry, Susan Nunnally, Kim Evans, and many, many more. We have future Hall of Fame coaches in this room right now, and I'm thrilled with that. That is Auburn being Auburn. 22 national championships, 100 conference championships, almost 100 conference championships, countless individual national champions. That is Auburn being Auburn. The great traditions, the Tiger Walk, the Eagle Flight, Rolling Toomer's Corner, that is Auburn being Auburn. I believe in Auburn and love it. War Eagle. And now with that, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to make an attempt to answer them.
We'll start in the first row. Brian?
John, Brian Stoltz, Auburn Rivals. Have you ever entered a job where there was so much pressure on maybe your first hire as when it comes to the football coach? And jokingly, have you ever shared a hot tub with a football coach?
Shared a hot tub with a football coach.
Yeah.
That's a new one for me. I'm sorry. Not to my knowledge. Hey, I'm not a big pressure guy. I just see opportunity, and Auburn is a land of opportunity. I think we have a great opportunity here, and I think the future is really bright.
I'm sorry. Mark, third row. Right.
Mark Murphy, Inside Auburn Tigers and 24/7 Sports. Saturday night, I was over at your football stadium that you helped remodel. I'm very impressed. Have you got some ideas for what can be done to Auburn's facilities, including the baseball park too?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've spent a lot of time early on listening. I think that's one of the things about being a little bit more advanced in my career. 20 years ago, I would have done a lot less listening and a lot more telling or talking. I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen to our coaches. I'm going to listen to our administrators. I'm going to walk around these great facilities that we have, and we're going to do the very best we can to make them elite. We already have elite facilities here at Auburn University, but there's always some improvements. You've heard this expression has been used to death, the arms race in the Southeastern Conference. We're always going to have great facilities, but that means we have to keep up, and we have to keep competing in that space. So we will always work on that.
And stay there next to Mark. Bill.
Bill Cameron, ESPN 106.7. Mississippi State becoming the cradle of SEC ADs. You're the third seeding SEC AD to come from Mississippi State. Talk about your mentors and just how that's come about.
I feel so privileged. Auburn, believe it or not, is the 7th SEC city I've lived in. That's right, no, right? I think so. I just feel so privileged. I got to work with Jeremy Foley, one of the all-time greats. I got to work with Mitch Barnhart. Scott Strickland is one of my closest friends. Greg Byrne, gosh, am I allowed to say this? Is a really, really close friend. We talk on a lot of occasions at 6:30 in the morning when I'm trying to run and he's trying to walk. Yes, you take this great information, this great knowledge from other people, and you try and weave your way in this world, and nobody gets here alone. It takes a great deal of support from others, and I just feel privileged in that space.
And stay on that side. Philip?
John, could you just talk about not asking you for specifics, but just the process of a search for a job as big as the head football coach and kind of what that entails?
Kind of thought somebody would ask that question. I actually brought this, and I'm not going to open it up, but this is a very, very long process. In fact, I have 58 things on this piece of paper that we go through as we go through this process of looking for a new head football coach. It all starts. It starts with this. It starts with culture. It starts with X's and O's, and it starts with recruiting. Those three things have to be up front, but there's a whole lot of other things that have to be answered before you get really deep into it.
Front row. Justin.
Justin Hutchinson, Auburn Live. Can you just talk about your approach to NIL and specifically on the Victory and kind of what their plans are for Auburn and what your vision is for NIL moving forward?
Well, 6 years ago, actually going on 7 now, when I became the athletic director at Mississippi State University, I would have never guessed that we would be where we are today in the landscape of name, image, and likeness. But certainly, now that it has started, much like the space race in the 60s, right? Now that it has started, we got to be out front. And we have to be aggressive, and it's the way of the world. So we're going to jump in with both feet. Certainly, an incredible foundation has been laid at Auburn University. Very proud of that. Makes this position even more appealing. And it really speaks to the passion for Auburn University to see what's already been done in that space. So I'm excited about jumping in there and locking shields with all those people who are involved with the NIL process at Auburn.
Stay on the front row of the bus.
Goodbye, SmallBoyO.com. I see you're in a good mood today. What's this last couple of weeks been like for you when you decided, okay, I'm really interested in this job, leaving a job that you seem to enjoy, a place where you seem to enjoy, and then getting here? What's that process been like?
It's been emotional. There was leaving your alma mater is difficult. The friendships that Nell and I had, obviously the working relationships, there's a passion there. But this is Auburn. And I spent the first 5 minutes speaking to you, all of you, of my why. Auburn is a national brand. Auburn is a powerful entity. And Auburn is an incredible place. So as you go through this process and you ask yourself, okay, am I being ridiculous here? These people at Mississippi State have been so great to you. It's been such a wonderful experience. What are you doing? And then you look on the other side and say, Auburn, wow. So I feel like there's been a whole lot of wow for me. And I've felt that way about Auburn for a long time.
We're going to go to the back. Johnny?
Hey, John Cohen, ABC 3240 Sports in Birmingham. John, I just wanted to ask you, before you accepted the job, were you given assurances that you will be the chief operator when it comes to the hiring processes within the athletic department?
Certainly we had those discussions. And yes, the final decision will be my own when it comes to hiring within the athletic department. But, again, I'm going to go back. The 35-year-old version of myself would have stuck his chest out and said, this is how it's going to be. The 56-year-old version of John Cohen says, I want all the information that is available to me from everyone that I can possibly get it from at Auburn and beyond. Information's a powerful thing, and I want that information. So, again, certainly, Dr. Roberts made it clear that these decisions will be my own, but it takes a village. It takes a group of people sharing information, sharing knowledge, and quite frankly, I've been on the phone a lot because we have to make great decisions. That's what I'm charged with doing.
Going to stay in the back, far left.
Ryan Hennessy, ABC 13 in Birmingham. Touching on that, I know the head coaching job is the topic for all the fans right now with your first hire, one of your first hires. Have you called people so far, and when do you want that job to be offered to someone?
Yeah, I won't talk about the process per se. It obviously dominates my time, which it should. The football head coaching position at Auburn University is a critical decision, and we take the utmost seriousness. There will not be anything we don't look at. Everything's on the table every day. But I'm not going to go into dates and times and process and when the finish line is going to be. We're going to get there when we get there, and we're going to make the right decision for this great institution.
We're going to come back down to the front row, far right, John.
Now first off, is that list criteria, or is it to-do list? I got to call this number of people. I got to do that.
It's just, it's actually some of both. It's actually some of both, but a lot of it has to do with characteristics that you're looking for and questions to ask.
And what have you learned, because you have hired a couple of football coaches, and they weren't necessarily traditional hires. What have you learned from those processes that kind of help you here?
Well, I'm going to drop cliche on you right now, okay? And I'm going to use the F word, fit. And everybody uses it, but it's real. And what is a fit for Mississippi State University is a different fit for Auburn University. And that alters the paradigm. And again, you have to make those considerations.
Go second row, Tom.
Tom Brady.com. I know you don't want to get too much of this process, but do you plan on using a search firm to help with hiring a head coach?
We will use a search firm strictly for logistics purposes. Search firms will not give us names. They obviously will help in background checks, and they will help us with logistics. Every other part of the search will be our own.
We're going to stay in the second row to the right. Justin.
Hey, John, Justin Lee with Opelika-Auburn News. You have a few sports here that you didn't have at Mississippi State. Gymnastics, everybody's fired up about, equestrians, national championship program. And swimming and diving has a crazy history here. How do you go about learning what you need, what those sports need from you? Or do you just take your baseball mentality and apply it? Or how do you go about it?
No, I know I have a lot to learn, and I've already reached out to Greg Williams, who's done an incredible job here. My goodness, the amount of national championships, just following the last event that they had was kind of remarkable and eye-opening for me. Nell and I spent 5 years at the University of Kentucky, so even though it's a different type of horse, we are familiar with horses. Swimming and diving, I come from a swimming and diving family. My father actually swam almost every day of his professional life. My sisters were big into swimming, so I was dragged all over the Southeast going to swimming meets as a kid. Didn't appreciate it then, really appreciate it now. Went to swimming practice just the other day. Gymnastics, just an incredible sport at Auburn. Can't wait to go watch those kids perform. Those student athletes have a remarkable reputation, not only on this campus, but nationally as well. Just excited about those opportunities.
We're going to go to the front row. Jay.
JJ, with the Auburn Rivals, my question for you is, you're kind of an endangered species in a way, that you're a coach that has transitioned into AD. That doesn't happen as often anymore. Talk about, do you still look at your job now from a coach's set of eyes?
I think I do. I was fortunate enough to be in the locker room last night when Coach Pearl and his team came in at halftime, and I saw the look on his face. I'm like, yeah, I know that look. I know it. By the way, I feel so privileged with the coaches we have here. Coach Pearl, what an incredible job he's done. Butch Thompson and here's been to Omaha 2 of the last 4 years. I intimately aware of the capabilities of Butch Thompson. I've so many other coaches on this campus who have done a tremendous job. Yeah, I think you can, when you've done it, you sat in that particular chair, there's a little bit more connective tissue. You really understand. You understand what it's like in a moment not for your team to not play well, and you go home, you can't sleep. It's just different. So I've worn the two hats, and I think that there's some value in that. I really believe that. And in fact, other ADs who are friends of mine have reached out and said, hey, I'm having, an issue connecting with this coach. What do you think? That happens quite frequently, and I feel like I do have that club in my bag.
We're going to go to the left front row. Brian.
Yes, Brian Matthews, Auburn Rivals. When you go about choosing a coach, whether it's for football or another sport, what are some factors of that person, that personality that you look for in the leader of student athletes?
You got a couple of hours. Again, I'm going to use the F word again. It's about fit, and there's not an exact science. There's analytics. There's a little bit of gut feel. There's a lot of factors. I could read you off this list. A lot of this is commonsensical, but a lot of this is really important to me as I've been through the hiring process several times.
Front row to the right, Jason.
Jason Caldwell, Auburn 247. You mentioned Coach Baird, Coach Dye. That was the time you were a player. You got to watch. How did those guys specifically mold your thoughts and feel about Auburn?
First of all, those guys are rock stars. You can just feel their charisma. When you were around Coach Dye, and I wish he were here today, you can just feel the charisma ooze. And I feel the same way about Coach Baird. Just gentleman, high level of thinking, great vision. Just in awe of those guys. And I've had a couple of conversations with Coach Baird already. And by the way, I think Coach Baird's one of 4 SEC athletic directors. He was the athletic director here for a little while, who has a baseball background in coaching in this league. So, just part of the fabric and the tradition of Auburn, and I truly respect that.
We're going to take two follow-ups, Nubias and then Mark.
You mentioned the relationship with Greg and growing up in Tuscaloosa. Were you a Bama fan? And the other thing is, tell me about a young Butch Thompson.
A young Butch Thompson.
Younger. Less grace.
You know, I would never have a beard because I can't grow one. And if I grew one, I'm scared to death it would be totally gray, so I don't do that. But Butch he really pulls that off. He looks, I mean, it's a high level of sophistication there. Kind of an Ernest Hemingway type look. I love Butch. I respect Butch. He does it the right way. I was the head coach at Mississippi State. I learned so much from that guy. Our 8 years together is unbelievable. His wife, Robin, who's here today, is an absolute star. Just so privileged to be part of that. Growing up in Tuscaloosa, yeah. I mean, I remember the buses rolling in front of our house to go to Birmingham to play football games, and the neighborhood would go out and do the Shakers. It's all part of your childhood. But I can tell you this, when you talk about the star power that Auburn has always had, even growing up in that town, boy, it was sure fun to watch that and to recognize that. Just really, really cool. And listen, I'm not going to run away from this. I think this is the best rivalry in college athletics, Auburn and Alabama. And I can't wait to compete with that school up there in Tuscaloosa.
Far right, third row, Mark.
You've been athletic director for a while now, and you've seen a lot of change recently. What's going to be the biggest challenge for athletic directors across the Southeastern Conference and other Power 5 conferences in the next couple of years?
I think, just to be really simplistic, the biggest challenge is going to be the unknown. I mean, who is going to govern what's moving forward in the NIL space? Are state legislatures going to govern this? Is the NCAA going to govern this? Is the federal government going to govern NIL? It's such a huge factor because it is about student athletes having the opportunity to do something they've never done before at a high level. And folks who represent athletic interest who are allowed to provide opportunities for these student athletes. And I think on some level, it's a good thing. On some level, it's a little bit of a frightening thing. And I do believe there should be guardrails. There aren't as many as I would like at this point in time, but again, that's not going to stop Auburn University from being aggressive in this space. And from the conversations I've already had, it's very exciting again to see the passion in that space that Auburn has.
John, thank you for your time. Everyone, thank you for your time. One last announcement. We're going to do a quick photo op with President Roberts and his wife, and John and his wife up front here. Thank you.
Thank you. War Eagle.